Good morning to all. So in the last class we discussed about the chapter Letter to Adolf Hitler, just an introduction to that chapter and also the first part of that chapter. So in this class we will be continuing this chapter in a very detailed manner. So from the page number 137 in the textbook onwards, we have the textual side of this chapter, which is the letter to Adolf Hitler. So this letter is written by Mahatma Gandhi to Adolf Hitler on December 24th, 1940, and the content or the major theme in this letter is that regarding the some advices to Hitler regarding especially the World War II, and also the method that used in India by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle. So this chapter is a form of letter, and the content is very powerful, and also we can see that all the major thing regarding the World War II and also the Indian independence struggle, all these things are included in this chapter or mentioned in this chapter. So this chapter we can divide into different sections. So the first section was regarding just an introduction to this letter, and the second one is regarding the major content of this letter. So the first one is regarding the non-violence or the non-cooperation movement which is used by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle. Then in this letter we can see that the non-violence or the non-cooperation movement is one of the most powerful tool against these violent forces in order to succeed against them. So here we have the major points regarding this thing in the textbook from the page number 137 onwards. So ours is an unarmed revolt against the British rule, and also but whether we convert them or not, we are determined to make their rule impossible by non-violent and non-cooperation. So here we have a kind of clear idea regarding the non-violent and non-cooperation movement, in which this is a kind of method in its nature which is indefensible. So the method which is indefensible is we can call it as a kind of non-violent or non-cooperation movement, in which it is very powerful tool against these kind of violent forces, especially in India against the British rulers or the British imperialists during the Indian independence struggle. So this letter was written during the time 1940 on December 24. So at that time India didn't get the independence. So the struggle against or fight against this kind of violent forces was through this kind of non-violent or non-cooperation or this kind of non-violent movements, and it is a method in its nature. It is called as an indefensible movement, and also it is based on the knowledge that no spoliators can compose his end without a certain degree of cooperation, willing or compulsory, and of the victim. And also our rulers may have our land and bodies but not our souls. So this means that this method is can be called as a powerful tool against the violent forces, and also it is a method in its nature which is indefensible, and it is based on the knowledge that no spoliators. So the spoliators means the kind of the destructors or the kind of one who against a kind of this violence or the destruction or the alteration, all these kind of thing which comes under the spoliators. So here we have the spoliators, who are the British rulers or the British imperialists, who is going to conquer or going to dominate against the Indian forces, which means that to fight against them, a powerful tool which is adopted by Gandhi and during the Indian independence struggle, the most powerful tool was the non-violent or the non-cooperation movement. And our rulers may have our land and also bodies, but not our souls. So this is very important point regarding this letter, in which our rulers may have our land and also our bodies, but not our souls. So the rulers can access our land, also our bodies, but they cannot access our soul. So it is very, very important or very meaningful sentence. in this chapter, in which the rulers can dominate our bodies and also our land, but they cannot access our souls. So our soul or our mindset is exclusively for our ideas, exclusively for our methods. So the method followed by Gandhi was the non-cooperation movement. It is very powerful and also very motivating type of kind of method against the fighters or this kind of violent forces. So this sentence is very important. And also they can have the foreigner only by complete destruction of every Indian man, woman and child. So they can dominate or they can access this kind of land, also our bodies, but in order to conquer or in order to dominate all these things, they have to focus, they have to destruct all this kind of every Indian man, woman and child. So it is a kind of a violation against the Indians. So we can see that the mindset of India during the Indian independence struggle was such a strong and powerful manner only through the unarmed forces. So the unarmed forces means the forces without this kind of armed equipments, and this kind of unarmed forces can be regarded as the non-violent or non-cooperation movement. So India adopted this way in order to fight against the British rulers, in order to get the freedom, to gain the freedom from them in a very good manner. So it is very important to focus on these lines. And also that all may not rise to that degree of heroism, and that a fair amount of frightfulness can bend the back of revolt is true, but the argument would be beside the point. And for if a fair number of men and women be found in India who would be prepared without any ill will against the spoliators to lay down their lives rather than bend to knee to them, they would have shown the way to freedom from the tyranny of violence. So this means that the thing or the rule against the kind of Indians which was led by the British forces was a kind of violent force. So we can see that the British rulers, their intention was to dominate the Indians in every aspect, especially the aspect of the land, their bodies, their wealth and all other things. So here we have the only method that Indians adopted in which Gandhi led this kind of struggle in a very useful or very important manner. That method is known as by the name the non-violent or the non-cooperation movement. So this here we have a clear idea or clear background regarding this struggle. And also I ask you to believe me when I say that you will find an unexpected number of such men and women in India, and also they have been having that training for the past 20 years. So this means that these kind of Indians or these kind of all the people who fought against the British forces during the Indian independence struggle, they have to give up their identity to them. They have to fight against them, and also initially they especially the British imperialists, they dominated the Indians in a very tactful manner. So we have been trying to for the past half a century to throw off the British rule. The movement of independence has been never so strong as of now, and the most powerful political organization, I mean the Indian National Congress, is trying to achieve this end, which means the freedom from the British rulers. And also we have attained a very fair measure of success through the non-violent effort. And also we are grouping for the right means to combat the most organized violence in the world, which is the British power represents. So this means that the non-violent effort or the non-violent method adopted by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle was basically it is one of the most successful method adopted by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle. So the time which was the British, they ruled India, was almost a half a century to throw. Especially the Indians took the kind of half a century to throw off the British rule. So this means that they ruled India about half a century means about 75 years or 50 to 75 years. So this means that this time period India go through different stages, different kind of struggles, especially the violent by the British imperialists. They already they suffered, or they already implemented a kind of violent rules against India. So this means that the British rulers or the British imperialists, Indians, they fight against this kind of forces was the method, the successful method was the non-violent method. And also we are grouping for the right means to combat the most organized violence in the world, which is the British power represents. And also you have challenged it. It remains to be seen which is the better organized, the German or the British. So this means that there is a comparison between the German and the British. We all know that this letter is written to Hitler, who is representing basically the German side. And here we have a comparison between how the German and also the British people, they dominated these countries, especially especially the India. The British made the colony as the colony of British during that time. So here we have a comparison between the German and the British, and also we know that the British heel means for us and the non-European races of the world. But we would never wish to end the British rule with the German aid, and we have found in non-violence a force which, if organized, can without doubt match itself against a combination of all the most violent forces in the world. So here we have a kind of explanation regarding the non-violent forces, non-violence or the non-violence method in a very detailed manner. So before that, we just discussed about the major points in this chapter. The first one was regarding the method of using the non-violence led by Indians, especially the Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle against the British rulers. So here we have the one of the most important topic, one of the most important sentence in this chapter, which is the non-violence method. So we can see that ours is an unarmed revolt against the British rule. So it is very important thing. The second one was regarding the non-violent cooperation or non-violent method, and this method can be called as it is a method in its nature which is indefensible. It is also important, the method which is indefensible, defend ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റാത്ത ഒരു അവസ്ഥ, അതാണ് ഇവിടെ പറയുന്നത്. Then the third point was regarding the rulers, especially the British rulers, how they conquered India, how they dominated India. So they dominated our land and also our bodies, but they cannot access our souls. So it is very important. അവർക്ക് നമ്മുടെ ലാൻഡിനെയും നമ്മുടെ സ്ഥലത്തെയും നമ്മുടെ ഓരോ അവസ്ഥയെയും എല്ലാത്തിനെയും അവർക്ക് കോൺക്വർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിയെങ്കിലും നമ്മുടെ സോൾസ്, നമ്മുടെ മൈൻഡ് സെറ്റിനെ അവർക്ക് ഒരിക്കലും കോൺക്വർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിയിരുന്നില്ല. അത് ഭയങ്കര ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആയ കാര്യമാണ്. Then the next point was regarding the British rule, how they dominated the India. They dominated about half a century in India in order to get a kind of colonial rule in India. So this means that they already settled in India, and also they dominated India in a very tactful manner. So it is very important. And also our intention or our effort was regarding the non-violent effort led by Gandhi, and it is a kind of grouping activity for the right means to combat the most organized violence in the world, which is the British power represents. So ഇത്രയും കോമ്പാക്റ്റ് ആയ, ഇത്രയും ഓർഗനൈസ്ഡ് ആയ ഒരു ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഫോഴ്സസിനെതിരെ ഇത്രയും ചെറിയൊരു നോൺ വയലൻറ്റ് ഫോഴ്സ് മെത്തേഡ് കൊണ്ട് ജയിക്കുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഭയങ്കര വലിയൊരു ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻറ്റ് മെത്തേഡാണ്. Which means that there is the importance in the kind of this method too, in which this method is kind of activity regarding the most organized and most compact, and also the British they are regarded as the kind of the great empires in the world. So to fight against these kind of rulers, there should be a kind of compact, very powerful, effective kind of method in order to fight against them. So we know that the British heel means for us and the non-European races of the world. but we would never wish to end the British rule with the German aid. And also we have found in non-violence a force which, if organized, can without doubt match itself against a combination of all the most violent forces in the world. So this means that without using any arms, any kind of that kind of equipments from the other country, especially from Germany, India only adopted the method of this non-violent, which is a non-armed method that we discussed earlier. So this kind of non-armed method, or the non-cooperation movement, was a kind of very powerful and effective kind of method during the Indian independence struggle. So it is very important. So here it is very clearly written by Gandhi that, but we would never wish to end the British rule with the German aid. This means that German aid, ജർമ്മൻകാരുണ്ടാക്കുന്ന എക്യുപ്മെൻറ്റ്സ് വെച്ചിട്ട് ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് റൂളിനെ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കാൻ ഒരിക്കലും ഇന്ത്യക്കാർ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചിരുന്നില്ല. Because only the intention of Indians was only to use this kind of the unarmed method against the violent forces in a very effective manner. So the non-violent force or the non-violent method adopted by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle, it was very effective in its sense, and also it resulted the Indian independence struggle in a very good manner. So it is very important aspect of this letter. And also it is just like a comparison between the German and the British, how they dominated their countries, and also how they the type of countries against them adopted this kind of methods. So regarding India, we adopted the method of this non-cooperation movement or the non-violence movement in a very effective manner. And also we have found in non-violence a force which, if organized, can without doubt match itself against a combination of all the most violent forces in the world. So all the violent forces, these kind of violent forces, we can fight against them with a kind of organization, with a kind of group. This group, the intention of this group was with the method of this non-violent method. So with the help of this kind of effective tool or effective manner, we can fight against these kind of violent forces. So the combination of all the most violent forces in the world, we can fight against these kind of forces. So the method, which is very important, the non-violence method is very important. So India adopted this method because it was very effective in its sense, and also it resulted the kind of freedom to India. Then in non-violent technique, as I have said, there is no such thing as defeat, and also it is all a do or die without killing or hurting. It is also a very important sentence in this letter, in which it is a do or die without killing or hurting. ആരെയും കൊല്ലാതെയും ആരെയും ഹേർട്ട് ചെയ്യാതെയും ഒരു നല്ല രീതിയിൽ ഒരു പീസ്ഫുൾ മാനറിൽ വിജയം നേടിയെടുക്കുന്ന ഒരു മെത്തേഡായിരുന്നു നോൺ വയലൻസ് മെത്തേഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So here there is no kind of defeat in its sense, and also it can be used practically without money, and obviously without the aid of science and destruction which you have brought to such perfection. So here he addresses Hitler in a very satirical manner, we can say that, because it can be used practically without money, and obviously without any kind of this aid of science and destruction which you have brought to such perfection. So the Germans, they implemented this kind of armed equipments in order to fight against these violent forces. So here the Gandhi says that we do not use this kind of aid of the science and destruction, and which you have brought, that they have used it, and also to fight against the kind of violent forces. Then it is a marvel to me that you do not see that is a nobody's monopoly. So this monopoly is a very meaningful term in the sense of this kind of war and also the struggles. So this means that the monopoly means ഒരു കൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് കുത്തക എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്ന പോലെ ഒരു തരത്തിലുള്ള ഒരു നിലപാട് ഉറപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഒരവസ്ഥ. സോ ആ അവസ്ഥയിൽ നിന്ന് ഒക്കെ മാറിയിട്ട് ഗ്രൂപ്പായി ഫൈറ്റ് ചെയ്ത്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ഓർഗനൈസേഷനായി ഫൈറ്റ് ചെയ്ത ഒരു അവസ്ഥയാണ് നോൺ വയലൻറ്റ് മൂവ്മെൻറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So here we have just a comparison between the Indians method and the Germans method, and we can broadly we can say that the method adopted by Gandhi and the method adopted by Hitler during the World War II, and also in India during the Indian independence struggle. So it is very important point that we should focus on. So regarding the non-violence method, it is a do or die method without killing or hurting, and also there is a no such thing of defeat in the method of this non-violent movement. So this method is kind of a do or die without a killing or hurting. So this means that this is a very effective method, and also the result or the process is a kind of very peaceful manner. So this means the non-violence method is just an opposite to the other kind of violent method adopted by Germany. So this is just a comparison between the German and also the British in a very detailed manner. Also, it can be used practically without money and obviously without the aid of science and destruction that we discussed earlier, and also which you have brought to such a perfection. So here we have a comparison between the British imperialism and the Nazism. So Gandhi compares the British imperialism with the Nazism, in which the type of the method adopted by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle, and also regarding the method or the all the kind of activities led by Hitler during the World War II. So this is just like a comparison between these two important aspects of the history. And also we can see that at the end he says that it is a marvel to me that you do not see that it is nobody's monopoly. So this is just a piece of advice to Hitler in which you should realize that everything, every aspect or every activity is not a kind of nobody's monopoly, which means that we cannot rule, we cannot act a kind of actions against the violent forces or people in a very unethical way. So it is nobody's monopoly. So everyone has the right to fight against or have to live in a very peaceful manner. So here the activities or the actions led by Hitler during the World War II, together we can see that it is a kind of non-violent violent activity against the people of that time. And also regarding the non-violent method adopted by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle was a kind of peaceful atmosphere, a peaceful kind of activity. And here we have a comparison between both these activities. And also he says that you are leaving no legacy to your people of which they would feel proud, and they cannot take pride in a spectacle of cruel deed, however skillfully planned. And also I therefore appeal to you in the name of humanity to stop the war. So here we have a kind of very appeal or a kind of advice to Hitler in order to stop the war in a very good sense, in which all the situation or all the actions led by the Hitler was such a violent thing, unethical act. So in order to stop all these, Gandhi advised Hitler in a very peaceful manner. He says that I therefore appeal to you in the name of humanity. Manushyatvathinte പേരിൽ in the name of humanity, I appeal you to stop the war, and also you will lose nothing by referring all the matters of dispute between you and the Great Britain to an international tribunal of your joint choice. So it is regarding the joint or the relation between the Great Britain and Hitler. And also, if you attain success in the war, it will not prove that you were in the right, and also it will only prove that your power of destruction was greater. So here we have two kinds of attitudes, especially a kind of a valid fact regarding the activity led by Gandhi and Hitler. And Gandhi says that the power of destruction was a kind of greater thing, a very powerful aspect of Hitler. And also, if you attain success in this war, it will not prove that you were in the right. So it is not at all an ethical way of action against the violent forces. It is not at all a rightful manner, and it is an unethical matter. So this means that there is a kind of difference between the non-violence movement and also the actions led by the Hitler, especially the Nazis' activities. So all the actions led by them can be traced as a kind of unethical or the not at all a good kind of activities. So they win. If they win in this war, it is only because the power of the destruction that they provide with the help of these armed forces. So here we have the kind of unarmed forces, which is the non-violent and also the non-cooperation movement. So this means that if they win in the war, especially led by Hitler during the World War II, it is very important that they will win the war, but it is not at all in a very rightful manner. It is only because they use the kind of these armed forces equipments against the violent forces. So it is just like a true fact against regarding the Hitler's activities. And he says that if you attain success in this war, it will not prove that you were in the right, and also it will only prove that your power of destruction was greater. And also, whereas an award by an impartial tribunal will show as far as it is humanity possible, which partly was in the right. And you know that not long ago I made an appeal to every Briton to accept my method of non-violence resistance. I did it because the British know me as a friend, though a rebel. So this means that another important factor regarding this letter, in which Gandhi says that the true fact against the method which is adopted by Gandhi during the Indian independence struggle, which is the non-violent movement. So he says that you know that not long ago I made an appeal to every Briton to accept my method of non-violent resistance. So non-violent resistance എന്നൊരു മെത്തേഡ് ആക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ബ്രിട്ടൻകാരോട്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഇമ്പീരിയലിസ്റ്റോട് ഗാന്ധി അപ്പീൽ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. Because they know that, especially the British know that it is a very powerful and also effective method, and also regarded as a peaceful method. And I did it because Gandhi appealed to Britain to accept this method. And why he appealed is that the method of the British, they know that the method adopted by Gandhi was it's a kind of a non-violent resistance. It is a very powerful tool against the violent forces, and they know that, British know that Gandhi as a friend also they regarded as a kind of rebel, because Gandhi led against the British forces. So as of now, when he write this letter in 1940, the British considered the Gandhi as a friend as well as a rebel, because Gandhi was against the policies of the British imperialists. So that's regarding the major content of this letter. And we have one more major content, or the conclusion of this letter. We will discuss this conclusion in the next class. So in this class we just discussed about the major content of this letter in a very detailed manner. So first we discussed about the method adopted by Gandhi in this war, and also the first part was against just like an introduction to this letter, in which he says against he just evaluates against the Hitler's activities during the World War II. And also then he says that the method adopted by Gandhi, especially the non-violent movement, and regarding this non-violent and also the non-cooperation movement, he gives a clear idea regarding this method in a very detailed manner. And also according to him, the non-violent method, it is a method in its nature which is indefensible, and also it is based on the knowledge that no spoliators can compass his end without a certain degree of cooperation, willing or compulsory. of the victim, and also our rulers may have our land and bodies but not our souls. So this means that അവർക്ക് നമ്മുടെ ലാൻഡിനെയും അതുപോലെ നമ്മുടെ വെൽത്തിനെയും നമ്മെ തന്നെയും അവർക്ക് എടുക്കാൻ പറ്റും, ഡോമിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. ബട്ട് നമ്മുടെ മനസ്സിനെ, നമ്മുടെ ചിന്താഗതിയെ, നമ്മുടെ സോൾസിനെ ഒരിക്കലും അവർക്ക് ഡോമിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല എന്നൊരു വ്യവസ്ഥയാണ് ഇതിലൂടെ പറയുന്നത്. സോ ദിസ് മെത്തേഡ് വിച്ച് ഈസ് in its nature, which is indefensible, the non-cooperation movement, which is the indefensible method or the non-violent method. So this means that Gandhi gives a clear idea regarding this method in order to get a piece of advice to Hitler in a very useful manner. Then he says that we have been trying for the past half a century to throw off the British rule. So it is a reality against the British imperialists in which the Indians tried to, for the past half a century, to throw off the British rule. So from 1885 to 1947, a period of just 50 to 75 years, especially the Indians tries to fight against the rulers of British imperialists, in which the Indians need the freedom. So the method or the movement that India adopted during that time was the non-violent method. So he emphasizes this kind of method in a very detailed manner again. And also this method, again regarding this method, he says that we have attained a very fair measure of success through non-violent effort, and also we were grouping for the right means to combat the most organized violence in the world which is the British power represents. And also you have challenged it. It remains to be seen which is better organized, the German or the British. So ഇത്രയും വലിയ ഒരു ഫോഴ്സസിനെതിരെ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ജർമ്മൻ എന്ന ഫോഴ്സസിനെതിരെ, ഓർഗനൈസ്ഡ് ആയി കോമ്പാറ്റ് ആയി നിൽക്കുന്ന ഫോഴ്സസിനെതിരെ ഇത്രയും ചെറിയൊരു മെഷർ വെച്ചിട്ട് അതിന് ജയിക്കുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നതാണ് അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഡെപ്ത് കാണിക്കുന്നത്. സോ ദിസ് നോൺ വയലന്റ് മെത്തേഡ് വാസ് എ വെരി ഡീപ്പ് ഇൻ സെൻസ് ആൻഡ് ഓൾസോ വെരി ഇഫക്റ്റീവ് ഇൻ ഇറ്റ്സ് മാറ്റർ. സോ ഹി സേസ് അബൌട്ട് റിഗാർഡിംഗ് ദിസ് കൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് നോൺ വയലൻസ് മെത്തേഡ്. Then he gives a kind of advice to Hitler, and he says that there is a change, or there is the difference between the German and the British, in which we would never wish to end the British rule with the German aid. So this is a true fact regarding the Indians' intention, in which we do not use the kind of armed forces against the British rulers, and the method or the tool only that we used was the non-violent, which is an unarmed kind of forces against the British. So he compares the method and also the rule or the policy done by Indian against the British during this Indian independence struggle, and he says he gives an advice to Hitler in order to stop the war in a very meaningful manner. So before that, he again elaborates this kind of powerful tool, which is the non-violent tool, in a very detailed manner. He says that the non-violence a force which is, if organized, can without doubt match itself against a combination of all the most violent forces in the world. So ഒരു ഓർഗനൈസ്ഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഫോഴ്സസിനെതിരെ, ഇത്രയും പവർഫുൾ ആയ ഫോഴ്സസിനെതിരെ ഇത്തരം ഒരു രീതിയിലുള്ള ഒരു മെത്തേഡ്, എസ്പെഷ്യലി ദ കൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് ദിസ് നോൺ വയലന്റ് മെത്തേഡ്, അത് അത്രത്തോളം വിജയിക്കണമെങ്കിൽ അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഡെപ്ത് അത്രത്തോളം വലുതായിരുന്നു. സോ അതൊന്നുകൂടി ഡീറ്റെയിൽഡ് പറയാണ്. ദെൻ പറയാണ്, ഇൻ നോൺ വയലന്റ് ടെക്നിക്, as I have said, there is no such thing as defeat. So defeat എന്നൊരു സംഭവം ഇവിടെ പറയുന്നില്ല. And he continues that it is all do or die without killing or hurting. So this method is a kind of do or die method without killing or hurting, and also it can be used practically without money, and obviously without the aid of science of destruction which you have brought to such perfection. So here he says that without using this kind of armed forces or armed equipments, we can defeat these violent forces in a very meaningful, very effective manner. So this is the last part of this content of this letter, and later he says that he just advice, he gives just appeal to the Hitler in order to stop the war in a very meaningful manner. He says that if you attain the success in this war, it will not prove that you were in the right sense, and also it will only prove that your power of destruction was greater. So ഈ വാർ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് വേൾഡ് വാർ സെക്കൻഡിൽ ജർമ്മനി നാസീസ് ലീഡ് ചെയ്തിരുന്ന ഹിറ്റ്ലർ ജയിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു അർത്ഥം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് അത് ഒരിക്കലും ഒരു നല്ല രീതിയിലുള്ള ഒരു വാറായിരുന്നില്ല, നല്ല രീതിയിലുള്ള മെത്തേഡ് ആയിരുന്നില്ല. മറിച്ച് the method that they followed was the kind of destruction with the help of these armed forces. So അതൊരിക്കലും ഒരു നല്ല ഒരു ജസ്റ്റിഫയബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അവസ്ഥയായിരുന്നില്ല എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Then he says that it will only prove that your power of destruction was greater, and whereas an award by an impartial tribunal will show as far as it is humanly possible, which partly will show as far as kind of this in the right sense. And also that not long ago I made an appeal to every Briton to accept my method of non-violent resistance. So he says that the method of this non-violent movement, he appealed regarding this method to British in order to adopt this method. So they know that the Britain know that Gandhi as a friend and also as a rebel against them. And also he says that the method was in a very cultural sense, it was a successful method. So thus he just give a clear idea regarding the non-violent and also the method adopted by India during the Indian independence struggle, and he just compares it with the Nazis or the Hitler's actions in a very deep, very meaningful manner. So that's regarding the major content of this method, this lecture, and he just says Hitler, in order to stop the war and to attain the peaceful atmosphere during the World War II. So it is an advice to Hitler during the World War II by Gandhi. Especially the year is very important during the 1940. So that's regarding the major content of this lecture. Then we will discuss the later part of this lecture in the next class, and also the conclusion of this chapter in the next class. So that's for today. Thank you. Happy learning.